Hey everyone, Tin Man here, back with heroic Sire Denathrius in Castle Nathria. So I was a little bit spaced out right before the pull here and almost missed the pull timer, but I do get in position just in time, although I do miss out on a precast Pyroblast. Anyway, I pop all of my cooldowns on the pull, Combustion, Trinkets, Berserking, and for the first cast of Cleansing Pain, the As that spawn, they'll come just at the tail end of Combustion, so I can use a Phoenix Flames to hit a bunch of them, but with everyone's cooldowns up, they don't last very long at all. I will be saving my Rune of Power and Shifting Power combination for the second set of ads that spawn right after this, because they typically live a whole lot longer, and you get more value out of the AoE damage from Shifting Power. Once the next set of ads spawn, I drop my Rune of Power, start channeling Shifting Power slightly before the ads spawn. The ideal time to cast Shifting Power here is when the ads will appear between the first and second tick of damage. If you wait until the ads are already visible to start the channel, then it'll be off cooldown a little bit too late for another set of ads later on. As for the Sin Seeker red lines that come out, we don't really have any specific assignments in our guild. The person targeted will just get close to the wall, and then the other people will get in the lines while avoiding the cross to avoid getting double hit. You could assign specific people to specific sides, say left and right of the boss, but honestly it really wasn't that much of a problem for our group, so we just kind of YOLO'd it every time. As we move into the second slice of the room here, Combustion is just about to come off of cooldown, so it will line up with the third set of ads. I'm standing right in front of the boss for the Cleansing Pain, but when I get targeted by the red line, I have to move kind of close to the wall, but ideally I try to make sure that I don't move too far away from my Rune of Power radius. It actually looks like I just barely moved out of it on this pull, and I also did not use Berserking, and I even missed using my Soul Igniter trinket on this second Combustion. Honestly, that's okay though, because our damage is just so high that we'll have to stop damage soon anyway to avoid phasing him before everyone drops enough stacks. We still need to clean up the ads though, and my Shifting Power comes up off cooldown just in time to hit them as they spawn. The boss will phase at 70.5%, and we want to get him to that point immediately after the 5th Cleansing Pain cast, and so we just have to stand around and not DPS here for a little bit. We want to push the boss right as the ads are going to be visible because they will despawn during the transition. If we push him right before the ads are visible though, there's a chance that some of them will survive and deal some AoE damage before disappearing a few seconds into the transition, which could kill somebody, so only push to that 70.5% once the ads are out. On previous kills, I was not supposed to drop any of my stacks, and one of the priests was assigned to grip me in, but on this reclear, we figured it was safer to just clear my own stacks to avoid a situation where the priest might have been on the opposite side of the room and couldn't reach me in time, but I do get a grip anyway, and just for old time's sake, and I get a few shots off on the boss before dropping down into phase 2. Once we're on the ground, I move to the north side of the room where the Kabbalists are going to spawn, and I use my Combust on the boss rather than on the ranged Kabbalists. Now, I'm going to slow down this section a little bit to talk more about the Combustion targeting in phase 2 because I think it's a very important part of Fire Mage strategy. Ideally, we would fully kill the second set of Kabbalists in phase 2, and then push him to phase 3 before that third set of ads spawn. Our other Fire Mage, Shizzy, and I decided that it would be better for us to combust the boss to make sure that we can push him to phase 3 in time and let our Warlocks and Boomkins handle the ranged ads with multi-dots. And if they took too long to die, then our raid leader could easily identify that and tell us to swap to combusting the ads to kill them quickly. On the other hand though, if we defaulted to combusting the ranged ads in this first set, then it would be harder for our raid leader to tell if we had too much damage and could safely go back to combusting the boss. So ideally we want to make sure that we strike a balance between dealing enough damage to kill the ranged ones in time, but not pouring too much damage and cooldowns into them that we miss out on boss damage. After Combustion is done, I start inching towards the center to get in range for my Shifting Power and to get out of the path of the Impales who are supposed to go to the left side of the room, and since I didn't get targeted, I want to get out of their way. I make sure to wait for all of the ads to die before starting my Shifting Power channel because otherwise I'll be forced to move and cancel it early thanks to these red swirlies that spawn when an ad dies. Luckily our damage is high enough that I have time to fully channel and make some use out of the Rune of Power before the boss pulls everyone in and we have to go through the mirror. If your damage on the ads is lower and you don't have much time in between the last ad dying and the pull in, then you can save your Rune of Power and Shifting Power until you go through the mirror over here. Over here though, another Impale goes out and once again we take them to the left facing the mirror. Again, after that, we have a Massacre, and I adjust my camera angle to be as close to straight down as possible to make sure that I can easily avoid those red lines. I'm going to slow it down again here because Combustion is about to come off of cooldown, and I'm not going to use it right away for two reasons. One, we are going to have to go back through the mirror within the next 12 seconds, so I won't be able to get full value out of it. And two, our goals in Phase 2 here are first and foremost to get to Phase 3 before the third set of ad spawns. But since our boss damage is very high, we should have no problem phasing him in time, so I'm going to save my Combustion to clean up as many of the second set of ads as possible, who will be spawning in about 10 seconds from now. Once we get gripped in, we're going to go through the mirror, and then we're going to go back as soon as possible after that explosion goes off. Once the second set of ads are going to spawn, I'm going to start my Combustion. I initially start by targeting the boss, but I do swap to the melee ads once the boss gets a little bit closer to them. Based on our boss damage though, I might have been able to get away with using my Combust on a ranged ad rather than one of these melee ones, which would involve a little bit more moving, a little bit more downtime for me. And also our group is a little bit light on melee in general, so the melee ads don't drop as quickly as you might otherwise expect. This next Massacre is going to be a little bit scary as some of the crescendo swirlies are coming out at the exact same time, so I really have to focus up to avoid both of them. But with just one set of swirlies during the Massacre, it's not that bad, because we only got the melee ads down and not the ranged ones. After that though, we get gripped in and can move through the mirror again, and there's enough time here that I can fully channel my shifting power on both the boss and Ramornia, and then I get targeted by Impale, so I move off to the left side of the mirror as we transition into Phase 3. There's a lot to talk about here in Phase 3, so I'm going to slow it down to make sure that I can cover everything. My first priority here is to clean up the remaining ads. Luckily, they are in execute range, so I can use my Scorch on them for guaranteed crits. I dropped my Rune of Power here, but that probably wasn't great timing since I have to move rather quickly to get to the other ad, and I probably should have just used Rune of Power before the ads even drop down here at the start of the phase. The next big issue here is these circles that will come out, and they're going to drop a seed that needs to have people standing them to soak. Both of us mages are assigned to Ice Block one of the first set of seeds, since there's going to be a pull-in while we are trying to soak, and Ice Block can keep you in place. There's really unfortunate timing though, because a crescendo swirly hits just as I'm about to Ice Block inside one of them, and I actually Ice Block just barely outside the circle, so I have to cancel my Ice Block after the pull-in so I can move in to soak the seed. Since I knew that I would be taking excess damage compared to what my healers expect since I had to cancel my Ice Block, I used both my Blazing Barrier and Mirror Images here to mitigate as much damage as possible. There's about to be another knockback, so I get in nice and close to the boss and pop my Combustion along with Time Warp and my Potion, since there's not going to be a lot of movement for the next 15 seconds for casters, other than that knockback that I can easily blink back into position. After he finishes the knockback, we have a brief respite to finish up my Combustion, and the tanks will start to slowly drag the boss to the corner of the room, and everyone is going to stack into that side to make sure that we can bait that big pie slice that's coming out in just a moment. This pie slice will target a random player, so we have to make sure everybody is on the same side to make it more predictable. After the pie slice is targeted though, we can move to a clean section of the room, and I quickly use my Rune of Power and Shifting Power while there are a few seconds before the next knockback. The next set of seeds that comes out is going to be a double set, 2 sets of 3 seeds. Since my Rune of Power was so close to the boss and I blinked back into position, I was not really in a great spot to help the first set of 3 seeds that were dropped further back in range. But when the next set of 3 comes out a little bit closer to melee, my Rune of Power is finished and I can back up and help soak these ones. Luckily, during all of this, the boss is in execute range, so I can use Scorch with the Searing Touch talent to continue full DPS while moving. This talent really makes Fire Mages so incredibly strong in this fight, especially during the last phase where there is a lot of movement required. The amount of damage left to be soaked is indicated by the size of that red seed, and since the one to the right of me needs a little bit more soaking, I move over to help that one out. Immediately afterwards, another knockback is coming, so I position closer to the center of the room to avoid being knocked off the platform. I run back towards the middle, and we are about to get a Massacre that will overlap with more seeds that need to be soaked. As you can see, there's really not a lot of downtime at all to stand still and cast during this phase. I'm going to use Combustion during this Massacre because Combustion is all instant casts anyway, and I can see that I am relatively close to one of the seeds that is going to be dropped to my right, so I know I can help move to soak it while still staying within my Rune of Power. I accidentally jump forward a little bit, kind of a habit I have during Combustion, but I quickly catch myself and move back to finish soaking. After my Combustion is finished, I probably should have just used my Rune of Power immediately since there was a knockback coming and I could have easily blinked back into position. I don't use it, however, just doing my normal DPS and positioning myself to not get knocked back into the red area. I walk back normally before a big pull happens, but if I had used my Rune of Power, I would still be within range while walking out of this explosion radius. I try to blink away, and I was planning to use my Rune of Power now, but it's just a terrible time for it with new seeds coming out, so I would have been forced to move away from that rune. So I opted to just hold it for later where there's not going to be that much movement. I try to nudge forward a little bit to get inside this anti-magic zone to reduce the damage taken. The area of effect of AMZ is actually slightly larger than the animation, so I can get the damage reduction even standing just on this edge of it. After the seeds are done, we are going to get another pie slice and get a knockback, which we can conveniently use to move ourselves out of that pie slice. So we make sure to get stacked into the correct side of the room and watch positioning to avoid being knocked off the platform. In this last little corner of the room, we have one last set of seeds to soak, along with a pull-in, which is going to make it very tricky. We actually get the first 2 seeds soaked really easily, but no one gets in the third, so I move over right before I get pulled in. I try to blink back right away, but I accidentally blinked the wrong way. Luckily, I have another charge of blink, plus my Night Fae signature ability to blink out one more time to help soak. The damage here is pretty intense, and the fight is almost over, so I use both my health stone and health potion just to make sure I'm topped up and won't die before the boss does, as we take down the final percentage of the boss and get the kill. So that does it for Heroic Sire Denathrius. I really enjoy this fight. I think it is a great final boss for the raid, and I cannot wait to see it on Mythic. Thank you all so very much for watching, and I will see you next time.